Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with another episode of the Snowflake Conflict. How are you guys all doing? I hope you're all doing well. This is episode 3. The date and time is the 20th of September 2024 at just over 7 p.m. UK time. We are dual streaming live on youtube.com/Reganelite and on twitch.tv/Reganelite1. How are you guys all doing? I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're ready for the weekend vibes. Some of you may have just come from Daily Blase's live stream. Unfortunately, I missed the end of that. Unfortunately, missed most of that live stream. Unfortunately, because I had other things to deal with. Unfortunately, I really was supposed to make time for it. So I do apologise for that. But just before we get started and covering some of the news, I have just updated the description. So I've got stuff on Lebanon, obviously what's happening in the Middle East. I've got a piece from Byline Times on Gaza. I'll obviously be talking. I've got a piece on Myanmar, Sudan, as well, and one attack in Mali as well. Here for us as well. I do have one funding video as well for us as well. But of course we will, if by any chance we happen to get if we go too long and we get too near to 8:30, I will stop before then, guys, just so we can switch over to Max's live stream. Volume too low. Yeah, that was something I was noticing. That was something I was noticing when I was recording. So I don't know why it seems to have played about. I've increased the volume again. Yeah, for some reason it went. Yes, the volume's been playing. Yeah, it's very very low on the meter here. I don't understand that. That's very very weird. It's already at 300%. I don't want to put it any higher, so I'm not sure about that. Hopefully that's a bit better for you guys. I will try to. Maybe I'll shuffle over a little bit. See if that's better. But anyway, who have we got here in the chat? Mad Monk, good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Chris Fisher, good to see you, buddy. I hope you're all well. Jow, good to see you there as well. And Genie Bottle and anybody else lurking in the background. I hope you guys are all doing well. So I want to start off with this piece from the Association Press here. With regards to Sudan, we've talked. It's a similar one to we talked about last week, but hopefully, you know, I'm glad actually that I actually have a. Before I actually talk about this, I just want to say this. Like, I wanted originally the Snowflake Conflict live stream was going to be. Originally, guys, what I wanted it to be wasn't really me covering articles, but it's near to next impossible for me to get videos of Sudan and Ukraine that isn't informative or helpful to you. That's the only thing. I can get plenty on Gaza, as you guys know, but I don't get nowhere near enough on them or even Myanmar online. So that's why I've decided to go with I wanted to do this originally. This live stream was to be like the Snowflake Watch for those who watch on Wednesday, where we cover loads of videos, but there's just not enough out there. That's the problem, guys. So that's why I've changed the format to this back to into the format that I use for many of my other live streams. Anyway, so the first one I have here is on Relentless fighting is devastating Sudan and the escalation in Darfur's capital, the UN has said. So the UN's talked about, we've heard from the UN before in the past. They've obviously been, this report, I believe it was yesterday, this one. Yeah, this one was yesterday. This is one of the latest ones from Sudan. There is actually a, I just want to confirm, I think there was a news, there was actually a news outlet that's actually called, to just see if to try to find. There was a news outlet I found today. I'm not sure how reliable they are, called Sudan Tribune.com. Plural news and views on Sudan. I'm a little bit skeptical to use it because I haven't had a chance to look up on whether or not it's a reliable source, but they seem to have a lot of source on Sudan. But for now, I'll just stick with the medias that I pretty much know. But if I find them to be reliable, I'll use them for covering stories in Sudan. But as for this one, obviously, We've talked about this before, about how frustrating this conflict. This is a conflict that obviously that the world does not talk enough about, does not adhere to, because of the relentless suffering that is happening in the country, the amount of people that are forced to flee their homes and livelihoods. Many homes have been destroyed, and the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, have been accused of many crimes, which they have continuously denied. Yet there is evidence to suggest otherwise, that they are treating indifferently to people, that they are wiping out entire villages, that they are kidnapping women and allegedly raping them as well as taking children in to recruitment as well, allegedly as well. Many other crimes which are pretty devastating, that the Rapid Support Forces, one of the two sides in this conflict that has been going on. And it appears obviously that it appears that neither side really intend to settle or negotiate any kind of peace whatsoever, which is also very frustrating as well. Even though that there are countries trying to sort out some kind of ceasefire in order to allow at least aid to get in. There was recent reports where I think one of the Sudan borders where the government did allow UN supply aids to get in at one point recently, not too much, but it's still nowhere near enough that they need out there. And I imagine obviously during the summer it must have been absolutely horrible. Many people would have died off as a result of hunger, famine, and dehydration out there because of the temperatures. Especially there. I mean, this is a very old photo here, April 2010, but it's hard to get any kind of glimpse of what's actually happening within Sudan, because the problem is that many journalists just can't get in there because they would be targeted simply. The government doesn't want any kind of journalism in there. The RSF certainly cannot be trusted to guarantee the safety of them as well. So it's really a case of those on the outside trying to get information, getting information on what's happening on the inside of the country, really. So it's mainly down to obviously UN sources that are going in and out for aid and whatnot. But let's read what the Associated Press have to say, because they are one of the more reliable sources of media. I would say the Associated Press are one of the more reliable sources out there. They do a very good job of looking after their sources as well. So relentless violence has devastated Sudan, and large-scale fighting has escalated in and around the capital in Sudan, western Darfur region. Not only held by paramilitary forces, the United Nations top humanitarian official said last Wednesday. The acting humanitarian chief, Joyce Muska, told the UN Security Council that famine has already struck Zamzam camp, about 15 kilometers, that's 10 miles from North Darfur's embattled capital of El Fashir. And she said large-scale humanitarian operation is a matter of life and death. Yeah, it is pretty much a matter of life and death. Ted Boy, good to see you there. Hope you're doing well. Sudan is plunged into conflict in mid-April 2023 when long simmering tensions between its military and paramilitary leaders broke out in the capital Khartoum and spread to other regions, including Darfur. The UN said over 14,000 people have been killed and 33,000 injured. So the numbers obviously are not the same in comparison of loss of life, according to like what's happening in Gaza and Ukraine. The loss of life obviously is much higher, but I think it's also we also have to say that I think it's important context as well, is that we don't actually know what the count is in Sudan. We know we have a rough estimations of like more than 500,000 Russians have died with it in the conflict in the Ukraine war. We know that the Gaza Health Ministry, I'm pretty sure it's reported like about more than 41,000 Palestinians have died in the conflict died within basically what's happening inside Gaza. And that's not counting the losses of life by IDF soldiers as well, that are within there as well. Azusa urged the council to demand that the warring government and paramilitary rapid support forces refrain from targeting civilians, hospitals, schools, and other civilian infrastructure, and allow unimpeded delivery of humanitarian aid through all border crossings and across conflict lines. Yeah, they need to. I don't understand why they have an issue with even both sides on this. why both sides have an issue with aid. I get they're worried about giving the other side more weapons or whatever, but I mean, if it's a case of, like, if you're checking the trucks thoroughly and making sure there's no weapons and supplies or whatnot, and they've got stickers saying UN all over them, aid and all that kind of stuff, like, what more do they need to prove that they're not there to assist the enemy in any way, shape, or form? They're there to help civilians. It's hard to convince. It's sometimes really hard to convince these bodies. She's also called on the UN's 193 members nations to pressure the parties to agree to a humanitarian pause to save lives and give civilians respite and allow us to deliver assistance. Yes, this is a very good point. We had a small humanitarian pause within Gaza, and we need one in Sudan. This has been going on non-stop for there's not been a pause between the two. There have been talks, and then it's just gone off again. They need one. Especially when you hear about up to 25 million Sudanese could die of famine, of starvation. I mean, they are scary high numbers, and there's not really a lot to confirm them, but it's still a very worrying situation indeed. 2 decades ago, Darfur became synonymous with genocide and war crimes, particularly by the notorious Janjaweed Arab militias against populations that identify as Central or East African. Up to 300,000 people were killed and 2.7 million were driven from their homes. That legacy appears to have returned, with the International Criminal Court's prosecutor Colin Khan saying that in January there are grounds to believe that both sides may be committing war crimes against humanity or genocide in Darfur. Musa said the world should not abide in al-Fashir the atrocities that we witnessed in West Darfur. I know obviously that there are war crimes being committed by the RSF. As far as I'm aware, I've not heard enough about war crimes being committed by the other side, but I could be wrong. Good to see you, Alistair. I hope you're doing well. In June, the Security Council adopted a resolution called an immediate halt to the fighting and for de-escalation in and around al-Fashir. Regretfully, Musa said both sides ignored the call, and fighting escalated in the past week with constant and heavy shelling and bombing. Civilians, especially women and children, have been hit, and civilian sites and infrastructure, including hospitals and internally displaced persons camps, have been hit, she said. One of the 3 main hospitals is now al-Fashir, and only one is functioning, although particularly following an attack that caused extensive damage in August. And in August, international experts confirm that there is famine in the Zamzam camp, which houses around half a million displaced people. So they're suffering already, 500,000 people. Also said close to 1.7 million people in North Darfur face acute food insecurities, adding that 13 other locations in Sudan have been identified at risk of famine. Good evening, One Angry Pagan. Thank you so much for the £2 super chat, my friend. I hope you're doing well. I look forward to our conversation next week on Thursday. It should be very interesting for sure. Good to see you, and all hail the Badgers. In February, Doctors Without Borders reported that a child was dying every 2 hours in Zamzam camp. 2 hours! The latest screening by the medical aid organisation, the Ministry of Health, between the 1st and the 5th indicate that the situation is getting worse. Every 2 hours. That's just horrible. That is just horrible. Stephen Banker, good to see you. About 34% of children are malnourished, including 10% who are severely malnourished, Musa said. Aid deliveries are being impeded by fighting and flooding. Yeah, there's been flooding in Sudan as well. I'm pretty sure I reported it in a shorts video, but yeah, there's been flooding that's obviously not helped the situation at all. It's made things a lot worse as well. But Musa said that that as floodwater subsides in the coming weeks, the UN will be able to start moving and other assistance to al-Fashir and other areas at risk of famine. This acting under Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs stressed that to address the atrocity humanitarian situation, there are 2 keys: a de-escalation in fighting and a willingness by both sides to facilitate access to those in need. Being no doubt without safe and predicted access and a steady supply of food and humanitarian supplies, we will see a dramatic spike in mortality, including children in Zamzam and in other areas around al-Fashir, she said. Same goes for the situation across Sudan, Musa said, especially the capital Khartoum and neighbouring Sinjar and Jahar states in southeast Sudan, which continue to be devastated by relentless violence. Yeah, it's a situation that's, at the moment, there's appears to be changed at all, guys. That is the latest news that I have on Sudan for you guys. But what I will say is, obviously, I will continue at least as long as I'm able to do Snowflake conflicts. I will continue to try and cover what's happening in Sudan, at least one story at least for you guys, so you guys know what's happening at least over there. And our continuous thoughts and prayers are to all the innocents there who are suffering right now, and those who have lost everything, and those who are forced to flee the country against their will because of this conflict that should never have happened in the first place by these two, by both these generals. I said it ages ago, and I said it now, that both those generals, selfish bastards, yeah, because they were so close. They were so close to having a civilian government and peace, and both these bloody generals decided to get greedy, and this is what we've ended up in this situation. I know it's more deep than that, but my anger is at the both generals for this conflict. That is where my anger is with regards to this, guys. So the next one I've got for you guys is an article from the BBC. This one came out today. It's an interesting one with regards to Myanmar. So the headline is actually China spends millions on this new trade route, then a war got in the way. So before the Myanmar coup, military coup that basically ousted the government, and obviously now you have a military trying to since the military's been in power since is it last year or 2 years ago? Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. And obviously the uprising of civilians, obviously forming their own rebellion to try and bring down the military government. This has obviously not been ideal for China, as they had this trade route being established, and obviously that's not gone to plan. So what is this trade route, guys? So let me show you guys. So one village, two countries used to be the tangled for Yingying on China's southwestern edge. An old tourist sign boasts of a border with Myanmar made of just bamboo, fences, ditches, and earth bridges. A sign of easy economic relationship Beijing has sought to build with its neighbour. Now the border the BBC visited is marked with high metal fence running through the country of Runin in Yunnan province, topped by barbed wire and surveillance cameras in some places, cuts through rice fields and carve up one adjourned street. China's tough pandemic lockdown forced the separation initially, but it has been cemented by the intraceable civil war in Myanmar, triggered by a bloody coup in 2021. That's it, 2021. Thank you for reminding me. The military regime is now fighting for control in large swathes of the country, including the Shan state along the China border, where it has suffered some of its biggest losses. The crisis is at its doorstep, and nearly a 2,000-kilometer, 1,240-mile border is becoming costly for China, which has invested millions of dollars in Myanmar for a critical trade corridor. The ambitious plans aim to connect China's landlocked southwest to the Indian Ocean via Myanmar, but the corridor has become a battleground between Myanmar rebels and the country's army. That would have been really nice for China to have an established trade, to have an established link, from it to the Indian Ocean, if it was possible. That would have been very good in terms of trade, especially when they have to take it all the way around there. If you see, obviously, on the map there, obviously, if they had the connection through Myanmar, they could have established sending trade through Myanmar and from that side of that land, rather than actually doing it from China itself. Maybe it would have been feeling easier for themselves. One Angry Pagan, thank you so much again for super chat. I really appreciate it. £5, I really appreciate it. What goes unnoticed is the impact such war has on the environment and ecosystem affected as well, not just humans that suffer from such violence. Yes, absolutely, One Angry Pagan. And I would actually point, for those who are members, which you can join for just 99p, I would encourage you guys to check out the members tab, and there's a video on there I've covered about the emissions. A brilliant piece from Byline Times about emissions that are made as a result of conflicts and wars that are produced by military as well. So I do recommend checking out that video. It won't be out till Sunday for non-members, but if you're a 99p member, you can check out that video now in the tab. Not now, but after the live stream or later on, if you guys want to in your own time as well. But thank you so much for that. Yeah, ecosystems and the environment is all damaged as a result of conflicts and wars that take place. That is something that's not talked about enough. And yeah, Byline Times did a great piece on that, on along those lines. Similarly, this map, obviously, this is a map from BBC showing it from Google. So you can see here, this is the China-Myanmar border here. Obviously, it shows you in the small print there, but you can see how the border. So this is supposed to. So it runs pretty much all along. On here, Moose, Yangling, and Ruse are there. Doesn't actually tell you where the. Doesn't actually tell you on here where the actually village. It's supposed to be cut right in between it is, but interesting. So Beijing has sway over both sides, but the ceasefire it brokered in January fell apart. And now it's turned to military exercises along the border and stern words. Foreign Minister Wang Ying was the latest diplomat to visit Myanmar's capital, Naypyidaw, as it thought to have delivered a warning to the country's ruler, Min Aung. Yeah, basically what they're saying is like, I know you got a civil war going on, but you know, can you like sort things out for us, you know? And I'm sure they would heed China's warnings carefully, considering that they are much more powerful than they are. I'm sure everyone agrees with that. The conflict is not new to an impoverished Shang state. Myanmar's biggest state. It's a major source of the world's opium and methamphetamine, and home to ethnic armies long opposed to centralized rule. But the vibrant economic zone created by China's investment managed to thrive until the Civil War. A loudspeaker now warns people in rule not to get too close to the fence, but that doesn't stop a Chinese tourist from sticking his arms in between the bars of a gate to take a selfie. Wow. Two girls in Disney t-shirts shout through the bars, "Hello, Grandpa, hello," looking over here as the pink lick scooped of the ice cream, an elderly man shuffling barefoot on the other side barely looks up before he turns away. Contrast of difference on one side or the other from the looks of it there. Ruin is the last hope for Mrs. Lang, who can no longer earn a living in Myanmar. Burmese people live like dogs, said Ling Mazim, as her corner stall sells food and drinks from Myanmar, like milk tea, in a small market just steps from the border checkpoint in rural city. Lee, who looks to be in her 60s, used to sell Chinese clothes across the border in Moose, a major source of trade with China. But she says almost no one in her town has enough money anymore. Yeah, so the civil wars kind of cost her. Myanmar's military bureau still controls the town, one of the last remaining holdouts in the Shang state, but rebel forces have taken other border crossings and a key trading zone en route to Maus. Yeah, the rebel forces have slowly gained ground since the coup. The situation has made people desperate, Ling says. She knows of some who have crossed the border to earn as little as 10 yang. About £1 and not much more than $1, just so they can go back to Myanmar and feed their families. Damn. Those who are allowed slip across the borders to sell what they can. It's a real shame they can't go in and out freely, even though there's a conflict going on. The war has severely restricted travel in and out of Myanmar, and most accounts now come from those who have fled and found ways to move across the border, such as Lee. Unable to get the work passes that will allow them into China, Lee's family is stuck in Mandalay as rebel forces edge closer to Myanmar's second largest city. I feel like I am dying from anxiety, Lee said. This war has brought so much misfortune, and at what point will all of this end? 31-year-old Xing Ang, that's the name change, is among those who made it out. He works in an industrial park on the outskirts of Ruli, which produces clothes, electronics, and vehicles which are shipped across the world. Workers like him are recruited in large numbers from Myanmar and flown here by the Chinese government-backed firms eager for cheap labour. Estimates suggest they earn about 2,400 yen. That's like 340 quid a month, which is less than their Chinese colleagues. £340 a month. It's not a lot of money to us, but to them, that is life-saving money for them. There is nothing for us to do in Myanmar because of the war, Xing Yang said. Everything's expensive. Rice, cooking oil, intensive fighting is going on everywhere. Everyone has to run. His parents are too old to run, so he did. He sent home money whenever he can. The men live and work in the few square kilometers of the government-run compound in Rungzang. Says it is a sanctuary compared to what they left behind. The situation in Myanmar is not good, so we are taking refuge here. He also escaped compulsory conscription, which the Myanmar army has been forced into make up for the defections and battlefield losses. Yeah, that's something I've spoken about in the past, because the ruling government are basically telling everyone, if you don't sign up, they're basically telling young men, if they don't sign up, they would basically, which is pretty disgusting. As the sky turns scarlet one evening, Zeng and ran barefoot through the covered mud onto a monsoon-soaked pitch, ready for the different kind of battle. A fiercely fought game of football. Burmese, Chinese and local Yangon dialing Mings as vocal spectators react to every kick, pass and shoot. The agony over a missed goal was unmistakable. This is a daily fare in their new temporary home, a release after a 12-hour shift on the assembly line. 12-hour shift. They go 12 hours to earn £340 a month. Many of the workers are from Lashko, the largest town of the Shang state, and Lukinia, home to Juna-backed crime families. Lukinia fell to rebel forces in January, and Lashio was encircled in a campaign which has changed the course of the war and China's stake in it. Both towns lie along China's prize trade in corridor, and the Beijing brokers' ceasefire left Lashko in the hands of the Jua. But in recent weeks, rebel forces have pushed into the town, their biggest victory to date. The military has responded with bombing raids and drones attacks, restricting internet and mobile phone networks. The fall of Lashio is one of the most humiliating defeats in the military's history, said Richard Holsing, Myanmar's advisor at the International Crisis Group. The only reason the rebel groups didn't push into moves is they likely fear it would upset China, Mr. Holsey said. Fighting there would have impacted investment China hopes to restart for months. The regime has lost control of almost all of its northern Shang states, with the exception of the most region, which is right next to Ruri. Yeah, you don't want to upset China. Yeah, just stay away from it. Ruri and Musk, both designated as special trade routes, are crucial to the Beijing-funded 17,000 kilometer trade route known as the China-Myanmar Economic Corridor. The route also supplies China's investment in energy, infrastructure and rare earth mineral for manufacturing electric vehicles. But it's at the heart of a railway line that will connect Kunming, the capital of Yangon's province, to I know I'm not good with words. Kanapentu, a deep seaport of the Chinese are building on Myanmar's western coast. Yes, and like I said, that's going to be on the Indian Ocean. The port along the Bay of Bengal would give industries in and beyond rural access to the Indian Ocean and then the global market. The port is also the starting point for oil and gas pipelines that will transport energy via Myanmar to Yang. Yeah, so this map makes a lot more clearer to us. So we can see here. So there's Roos around Runi there, right on the border. Moose obviously in the side of Myanmar, and Runnery in China there, and they're right where that corridor is. So yeah, it makes total sense that they did that. The rebels didn't want to upset China on that one, but that's supposed to be the trade line there from Mandalay, and then Kalapitu, which is supposed to be where they're supposed to be building a massive trade port, China there. That's very interesting. Yeah, establishing obviously everybody. They would rather be trade. I think China would obviously rather be trading from that way out in the Indian Ocean, the global market, rather than from their side. But these plans are now in jeopardy. Yep, of course. President Xi Jinping has spent years cultivating ties with his resource-rich neighbour. When the country's elected leader Aung San Suu Kyi was forced from power, Mr. Xi refused to condemn the coup and continues to sell the army's weapons. But he did not recognise Ming Linghang as the head of state, nor has he invited him to China. So that says a lot. That says that China was not happy with. That says to me that while they didn't condemn the coup, they don't like that it's happened because it's obviously affected them. So to them, they're more upset about this than anything, because obviously it's affecting their trade. I mean, they have a firm. China can make Myanmar do anything they want, but I'm pretty sure if China really wanted to, they could go in and force this to end. I think they could. But it's not worth the resources and time. It's not worth the resources and manpower for them to do so if they really wanted to. 3 years on, the war has killed thousands of displaced minions, but no end in sight. Forces to fight on new fronts. The army has since lost between half and 2/3 of Myanmar at a splintered opposition. Alistair Keir, thank you so much for the 20 gifted memberships. That's a lot of gifted memberships, a lot of names there. Dalek604, Goddess of Abundance, SFX 2005, Ben Riggins, Daniel Thomas, Super Tiny 808. I see Super Tiny around on other places. Sylvia Schmidt, Sherbuck, if I mispronounced the name, I apologize. And Reg there as well. Thank you for the 20 gifted memberships. That's really kind of you, buddy. Really appreciate the support. Thank you. That's really, really nice of you. I'm just going to read. We are at hand as we always in area of trouble. More so the British state of the British Empire, 1885 to 1948. That's from Chris Fisher. Thanks for that. Interesting comment. There's something seriously wrong with people who think this unnecessary nonsense is acceptable. F sake. Yeah, there is. Without a shadow of a doubt. Beijing is in an impasse. It doesn't like the situation, sees Myanmar's military rulers, Ming Hengyang, as incompetent. I'm glad they think it's incompetent. Yeah, because China doesn't, like, I'm going to go out and limit. China doesn't really care who's in charge of the country. They just want to be able to allow their trade to go in through the country to the Indian Ocean. But they can't do that because of this civil war that the military started. Mr. Halsey said they are pushing for elections not because they're necessary but want a return to democratic rule, but more because they think this is a way back. Myanmar's regime suspect Beijing is playing both sides. Yeah, I think a part of that is playing too. Keeping up the appearance of supporting the Jula while continuing to maintain a relationship with ethnic armies in Shang State. Yeah, I agree with that. Analysis noted that many of the rebel groups are using Chinese weapons. The latest battle also resurged in last year's campaign launched by the three ethnic groups which call themselves the Brotherhood Alliance. It is thought that the alliance would not have made it through without Beijing's inact approval. Yeah, I can see China giving weapons to both sides. I can see them doing that. Saying, you know what, we got some weapons, we need to test some weapons, or we can sell them some weapons or whatever. Yeah, let's sell them to them. I can see them doing that. Because to them, all they care about is the trade route. I don't think they're too fussed about trade to them. I don't think they're too fussed about the country and its people in any way. Its gains on the battleground spell the end of a notorious mafia families whose scam centers had trapped thousands of Chinese workers, long frustrated over the increasing lawlessness along its border. Beijing welcomed their downfall and the tens of thousands of suspects who were handed over by the rebel forces. For Beijing, the worst-case scenario is the civil war dragging on for years, but he also fears a collapse of the military regime, which might herald further chaos. This has been going on since the coups. It's been in 2021. We're now in 2024, so there is still it will go on. I do believe it will drag on for years, because while they are making progress, the rebels, then I don't want to say they're not making enough, because it's not right, because they are gaining ground. It's a long battle. It's a long war for them. How China will react to either scenario is not yet clear. What is also unclear is what more Beijing can do beyond pressuring both sides to agree to a peace talks. Yeah, if Beijing wanted to get peace, they could force peace in this. That predicament is evident that Ruri, within its miles of shuttered shops, a city that once benefited from its location along the border, is now feeling the fallout from its proximity to Myanmar. Battered by some of China's strictest lockdowns, businesses here took another hit when the cross-border traffic and trade did not revive. They also relied on labour from the other side, which has stopped, according to several agents who help Burmese workers find jobs. And they say that China has tightened its restrictions on hiring workers from across the border and has also sent back hundreds who are said to be working illegally. Yes, there was also the other thing, wasn't there? There was another story that actually makes sense, because there was a story not too long ago, I'm pretty sure, about China no longer allowing foreigners to take to have adopt Chinese babies now. I believe that's now stopped by the Chinese government. They've stopped that in as far as I'm aware. There was a story regarding, adoption of Chinese babies in China. I can't remember the full story, but it was something along those lines. I'm sure someone will remind me in the chat on that. China's had the same borders for 5,000 years. Yeah. Jolly K, good to see you there. Hope you're doing well. Alright, just finish up with this bit here. Already gone 40 minutes in. The owner of a small factory did not want to be identified, told the BBC that the deportations meant that his business isn't going anywhere and there's nothing I can change. The square next to the checkpoint is full of young workers, including mothers with their babies waiting in the shade. They lay out the paperwork to make sure that they have what they need to secure a job. The successful ones are given a pass, which allows them to work for up to a week or come and go in the 2 countries, like Lee. I hope some good people can tell all sides to stop fighting, Lee says. If there is one thing in this world speaking up for us, and it's really tragic. She said she is often reassured by those around her that fighting won't break out too close to China, but she is unconvinced. No one can predict the future. For now, Rui is a safe option for her and Zhang Ang. They understand that their future is in Chinese hands, as do the Chinese. Your country is at war. A Chinese tourist tells a Monument J seller he's haggling with at the market. You just take what I give you. Yeah, it's tough for the people of Myanmar. It's very, very tough for them. I really do hope. I really do hope. A part of me is like, of course you would want peace, but at the same time, you don't want the military staying in control either, because they pretty much overthrew a democratic government as well. So yeah, I'm like, a part of me is like, I want the war to stop, the civil war to stop, but at the same time, it's like, I want the civil war to stop, but I also want the military to basically step down and give it back and give the government back to its people. But I don't see that happening. That I don't see them doing that willingly, and that's the whole reason why there's a rebellion in the first place, because they don't want to give, because they took power and they want and don't want to give it up. But it's fascinating to hear this piece about how this affects China. I think it's a very good piece here from the BBC. That's on it there. We're shifting gears here before we go to our funny video, guys. This one here, it's a small piece here. One report for another conflict. Well, there are lots of conflicts, obviously, in Africa. So, but this is one of the latest ones that I've got in Mali here from Reuters. So dozens were killed in a Mali attack by Al-Qaeda affiliates here. So an elaborate attack by Al-Qaeda affiliates in Mali's capital this week killed some 70 people, diplomats and security sources said on Thursday, while the government offered no figures for the casualties. The militias attacked an elite police training academy and the airport on Tuesday, demonstrating their ability to strike at the heart of Mali's capital. The country is fighting an insurgency that took root over a decade ago and is hard north. 10 years on, and there is still... Yeah, they don't seem to have a grip on this Mali in any way, shape or form. The scale and complexity of the attack further undermines the ruling Jalah's claims that security has improved since it booted out the French and US forces and turned to Russia instead for security. Two diplomats serving in the region, including one based in Bamako, said that the death toll was believed to be in the 70s. Reuters could not independently verify the numbers. A third diplomat based in the region said hundreds were believed to be dead and wounded, and hospitals had run out of beds to treat survivors. Good evening, Daily Blase. I hope you're doing well. I was there near the end of your live stream. Unfortunately, I couldn't watch all of it. I do apologise, but I hope you're doing well. I hope you had a good live stream earlier, buddy. Since the conflict in Mali erupted, violence has spread to neighbourhoods in the neighbours in the Sahel region and reached some north of the coastal countries. Thousands have been killed and millions displaced in the region, and some fighters are now aligned with Al Qaeda and Islamic State. Well, when they have when people have absolutely nothing, when they've lost all their lives, when they've lost so much devastation, they will turn to these forces, because when they have nothing else, they have nothing but their bodies and their bodies left to be put to use, and people will turn to any. When people have lost anything and people are desperate, they will go to anyone and anything. Tuesday's attack, claimed by Al Qaeda affiliate Jami Nasurim Wasam Mazim, the JNIM. Mali's ruling juror said he had suffered some losses without providing details. A Malian newspaper reported that funerals for some 50 police cadets would be to be held on Tuesday. 50. Retros were unable to obtain further details or confirm the service took place. The attacks was captured in video published on social media and showed insurgents setting fire to the presidential jet and dead bodies at the police academy. Only days prior, Mali's ruling leader Absalom Gola, who seized power in a coup in 2021, said his army had considerably weakened the armed groups and it's fighting with Russia's help. Yeah, how's that going? And that they've kept they don't allow independent media in. They don't allow independent media in. You know, since severing their ties to the French and America. How's that doing for you guys? And a coup as well. Yeah, country's not in a very good state at all. I mean, there's a lot of African countries not in a very good state at all, but it sounds like to me they're not doing good at all, which is very troubling to say the least, you guys. And then Russia tried to install puppets in Kiev after they could not. They invaded the country. Everyone's saying hello to each other there. That's all good. Yeah, all I could say to them, well, they didn't want the French anymore. They didn't want America there anymore. They've gone. They've decided to turn to Russia. Now, just say, like, I don't want to say you reap what you sow, because it's not fair, because innocent people have died as a result of what's happening there. But I do feel for the innocent involved in all of this as well. Anyways, we shall move on from it, guys. Let's. I think we need a little break. A bit of a funny video for you guys. I don't know how many of you are Lord of the Rings fans with this one. So some of you may not get any of these references. But if you are a Lord of the Rings fan, you will get these references. This one is from Foil and Arms, guys. I've only just listened to this just before, like literally like last 10 minutes before I come on, because I didn't have a funny video, but I wanted to get at least one for you guys. But I hope you guys enjoyed this one from them. This is really, really good. This is, so we talked about so many immigrations and getting past immigration tests, guys. Let's see if these guys can pass the test to get into Middle-earth.
Before granting you entry to Middle-earth, I just have a few simple questions. Who was the shortest ever hobbit?
Peter Jackson.
Correct. What dark evil presides in the Rings of Power?
Badly performed regional accents.
Correct. Name the terrifying wood from Lord of the Rings that everyone was afraid to venture near.
Elijah.
Correct. What is a common thing to hear in a restaurant in Middle-earth?
That meat is back on the menu.
Yes. Which tyrannical ruler wanted the Rings of Power all to himself?
Jeff Bezos.
Correct. What is the name of the only school for orcs?
Uruk-hai.
What is Middle-earth's biggest export?
Boromir memes.
Tolkien rejected metaphors and allegory in his work, but who were the Ents widely believed to represent?
Civil servants.
Very slow. And finally, what was the One Ring's perspective during Lord of the Rings?
Hand, river, dirt, finger, finger, envelope, fire, hand, neck, neck, finger, neck, pocket, finger, lava.
Yes, but unfortunately, you have answered one question incorrectly. Therefore, you shall not be granted entry to Middle-earth.
Oh.
What?
I thought
you're
you'd
going to do this.
No, I'm afraid you'll have to leave.
I'm getting in anyway.
What? No, what happened?
I don't know.
Where did you
go? I didn't know he had one of those.
Bloody cheek! He had the ring! He had the ring to get in. He didn't even need to go through this whole immigration thing. He could have just put the ring on and he'd be into Middle-earth. That would have been fine. Bloody cheek. Oh, God damn it. I need one of those rings that makes me those invisible rings. That would definitely get me past. That would definitely get me past a lot of border security. You know, can get past all these queues at airports and everything. Oh, if anyone knows where I can find the Ring of Power, let me know down in the comments below, guys. Yeah, if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, you would have loved that. If you wasn't a Lord of the Rings fan, well, sorry, but I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, so I wanted to share that one with you guys anyway. But yeah, that was a bit of fun. Guys, if you haven't already, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share this across social media so others are notified of this live stream. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing because it really does help support the channel. Help me to get to 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. That is the goal. I'd like to get there before the end of the year. We are several months away now from Christmas, and I'd like to get to 2,000 by the end of the year. So if you guys can help me get there, we really appreciate it. And of course, guys, if you want to financially support me in the work that I do, one of the best ways you can do so is by being just a YouTube member for just 99p, and you get loads of perks, loads of benefits for doing so for just being a 99p member. Access to custom emojis, get to access to members community posts, and also whenever you comment on any of my videos, I respond to them as a YouTube member. But also, just as cool as all of them, you also get early access to content as well, as some of you guys may have seen already on the members tabs. You get early access to all the content as well. And just before I go on as well, I just want to remind you guys, while I haven't recorded Regan's news round, I will be recording it tomorrow morning for you guys for Saturday, and I will be recording World's News Round I plan on recording World's News Round the same day as well for Sunday as well for you guys as well. So thank you to everyone who is a member, who's not a member, whatever, and just for even being here is greatly appreciated. Anyways, enough trying to shimmer people. Let's move on, guys. So this one is an interesting piece here. So this is from Al Jazeera. For Lebanon, war is coming, but this is not. But not this second. Hezbollah leader has a defining words for Israel, but what will happen next? What will happen and when is not clear. So I thought I predicted that full-blown war would happen in the next day or two. Perhaps maybe I was wrong. Perhaps it is a case of, excuse me. Perhaps it's a case of Lebanon are trying to constrain themselves from not going in a full-scale war, possibly. And the devastation that happened on Tuesday and Wednesday with the pagers and then with the walkie-talkies, it's just such an underhanded attack. And while a part of me understands, no, I can't say that. I was going to say a part of me understands why they did it, but no, I can't understand why they did it, because it's not normal. It's underhanded. It's not right. You know, let's be honest here. Israel and Lebanon are pretty much at war, but they're just not on the ground at war here. And Israel are not helping themselves in any way, shape, or form. This piece of shit on the left, Netanyahu, is not helping anyone with their in anything. For me, he's a desperate man who's just clinging on to power. And by going in a full-blown open war with Lebanon, he can argue the need and necessity to stay in power for longer, guys. That's the way I see it. Him determined to stay in power for longer as a result of this. So, low-flying Israeli warplanes break the sound barrier twice over Beirut as Hezbollah leader Hassan delivered his first speech since 2 days of attacks saw pages and walkie-talkie radios explode across Lebanon. The attacks, which killed Lebanese people, both Hezbollah, I know I'm still trying to pronounce it, guys. Hezbollah members and civilians, including at least 2 children, came months after Nasrallah told supporters to stop using mobile phones because they might be compromised by Israel. Yeah, that was back in February. They also occurred amid escalating rhetoric from Israeli officials about intensifying operations on their northern front. At least 37 people were killed and nearly 3,000 injured in Lebanon on Tuesday and Wednesday. and more than 600 had died since October the 8th when Hezbollah and Israel began trading attacks across the border. More than 100 were civilians. Nasrallah appeared fatigued at the start of his speech on Thursday as he acknowledged the severity of the damage. He called the attacks that tried to take out 5,000 people simultaneously a major terrorist operation, an act of genocide and massacre. He admitted it was a major blow, unprecedented in the history of the resistance. But his energy grew as he gave his address, including some of his signature provocations against Israel, specifying its prime minister. Netanyahu, we welcome an invasion, we consider it an opportunity, he said. Referring to Israel's goal stated on Thursday to make conditions near his border with Lebanon safe enough for residents who have fled Hezbollah attacks to return. Nasrallah said, I promise you, you won't be able to bring the settlers back to their homes. Strong words aside, Nasrallah didn't initiate when or where a response would take place. When you make a promise like that, you know for him saying that, full-blown war's coming. People close to Hezbollah promised a stunning response after such a staggering attack. The response will be gradual, escalating and painful. Qasim Kassar, a Lebanese political analyst believed to be close to the group, told Al Jazeera. That defiance cannot be reckless, other analysis said, as Hezbollah wants to avoid taking further losses in morale and personnel. The recent Israeli attacks on Hezbollah exposed serious weakness and vulnerability. Imran Sami, a professor of political science at the Lebanese American University in Beirut, had told Al Jazeera. Hezbollah must now be extremely cautious in its response. I believe Hezbollah's retaliation will be delayed as it regroups with the goal of regaining the initiative and surprise, while also awaiting a potential settlement in Gaza before acting. Hezbollah's last major retaliation was in response to Israel's assassinating the group's commander, Fael Shader. The response on August the 25th saw more than 300 rockets fired and drones launched at Israeli bases. We can certainly say that Hezbollah's reaction to the assassination of Fael Shader was not enough to re-establish deterrence. Cameron Emery Bitar, a professor of international relations at the St. Joseph University in Beirut, had told Al Jazeera. And this so-called equilibrium of terror is no longer holding. For many in Lebanon, the last few days have been surreal. We seem to be living in a Netflix series on a dystopia, Bilapar has said. It's unprecedented in the history of the warfare of the Middle East, and we have seen an awful lot of tragic events. Strikes on Hezbollah communication also made some Lebanese people worry that an Israeli invasion would soon follow after. Analysts told Al Jazeera that while they do not believe an invasion is imminent, it does not mean that Israel will not expand its aggressions against Iran-backed Hezbollah. Well, I thought that they were going to line up troops and whatnot right on the border and go in. That's why my thought was after those attacks on Tuesday and Wednesday, but that's not what happened. There is definitely a risk of why the war, Bitar has said. It will be extremely difficult for the Iranian Axis and for Hezbollah to find the appropriate ways of retaliating without giving Netanyahu his pretext. He's desperately looking to wage this all-out offense. Yeah, and they did it during a funeral as well, Israel. By the way, I do have to stress this, even though it's 99, we're 90 plus confirmed, 90 to 95% sure it is Israel responsible. They haven't confirmed that it was them responsible, but we are pretty confident it is them behind it. Like a funeral, setting off things at a funeral. Former United States Special Forces officer Shimon Kumarich, who is now at the global Guardian risk management firm, said the pager strikers sent a very clear message to Hezbollah. But he added it may not achieve Israel's stated goal of returning to displace Israelis to its northern border because the recent event shows the two sides are only drifting further away from a negotiating agreement. Yeah, it's not helping. The warring parties are moving further apart every day, and senior voices in the regions are saying behaviour has to change, Kamarika said. If Israel ploughs forward, then it's going to be an extended, horrible conflict. Yeah, that's the problem. The conflicts are just going to drag on. But we know that Israel don't want a ceasefire. Well, let me put it this way. Let me rephrase that. Netanyahu and his government don't want a ceasefire. I would probably say I would say the public would probably want a ceasefire, but it's hard to gauge there. So, Jolly K, thank you for being a member for thank you for being a supporter. I really appreciate it. Been a member for 6 months. Appreciate the support. Thank you. Analysts say if there is one thing made abundantly clear from the last few days, it was that technological edge is overwhelmingly in Israel's favor. Well, yeah, when you get lots of toys and stuff, yeah, from Britain and America that you've been getting from your buddies for a long time, you're gonna have a lot more advanced weaponry, aren't you? Nazar admitted as much in his speech. We acknowledge that the enemy has a technological superiority, especially as it's backed by the United States and the collective West, he said. Pro-Hezbollah Telegram groups reported the hacking of some Israeli websites, including the pages of some Israeli multi-palaties, I can't say, sorry, on Wednesday. Sorry, my stomach is playing up in case anyone's wondering why I'm fidgeting. But technological advances alone cannot win this win a war, Kamarish had said. The technological advantage is a miracle. If you have the will and the people and the belief, you can still ultimately advance because a war presence itself as is consistently changing. Both Israel and Hezbollah have the belief that is not usually the case in conflict, Kamarish added. And that concerns me greatly because without a negotiated settlement, it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. Yeah, it will. It will just get worse and worse and worse. Everyone knows, and I've said this before, and I will continue to say this, guys, and we're going to talk about it in a moment. Unless there is a peace ceasefire in Gaza, a permanent one, we will never, the tension in the whole of the Middle East will not de-escalate. Will not. You still have Houthi rebels in Yemen firing rockets and whatnot from where they are into Israel. You have what's going on here on the north border between Lebanon and Israel. And then you've also got what they're doing in the West Bank to Palestinians. And you also have what's happening inside Gaza. I know it's frustrating, guys. It is frustrating. Let's have a quick look at what you guys are saying in the chat before we get to the next topic. Jao says Israeli arms industry has a active interaction with weapon producers and developers in Europe, the US, and elsewhere in the world. Reganelite, yep, it's impossible to keep them from getting the tech. Israel is embedded in a lot of Western nations, Western governments, political, and that they have their hands in a lot of things. In not just America, but Britain and others. Yeah. Myself, from my work some years ago, received Krav Maga and small weapons training here in Portugal, says Jao. Ask me to link anything you need from the video description right there. Yeah, the links for the descriptions for all the articles that should be on the description as well, if anyone hasn't seen as well. Eastern European countries joining NATO willingly because of Russia's history and its own imperialism. Yeah, that's true. That is true, yeah. Head of the parliament went to Sweden and explained why Sweden will join NATO too. The Stochbringer, Norway and Denmark and other Baltic countries chimed in. 30, good to see you there. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for that comment. Finland took Sweden to NATO. Sweden didn't know that they are joining too. Swedish PM said literally what the F did Finland do now. Then our president, PM, foreign ministry, defense ministry. Oh, okay. When Russia attacked the Ukraine, the Finnish president, this girl called Biden and asked for audience. Biden cleared whole day just to talk to our president. Then the big wheel started going. I don't think Biden cleared his whole schedule just to talk with the president, but I can't speak. I can't speak for you. Thanks for your comments, guys. Appreciate it. Let's go to the next one, guys, because we've got just under half an hour. I do want to try and cover the deep state map if we can before we wrap up as well, if possible. Let me make sure this is the right one. Yeah, so this one is from Byline Times. It's an interesting one. So what Gazans really think of the war, who they blame, and what they want to happen next. This is an extraordinary new poll reveals some uncomfortable truths about the war in Gaza. So let's have a read of this, guys. So one of the most common justifications for Israel's assault on Gaza following Hamas's terrorist attack on Israel last year is that all Palestinians are guilty because they all allegedly support Hamas. Israel's defenders often point to images of some Gazan residents celebrating the October 7th attack and to reports that some Israeli hostages were detained in Palestinian homes and that some hospitals and schools were knowingly shielding Hamas fighters on their premise to back up this assertion. This argument is then used to fend off accusations that Israel's conduct during the war has violated international humanitarian law by indiscriminately killing or injuring too many innocent civilians. Is this... I just want to check. Hold on a second. Apologies. Just want to bring it over a little bit. Sorry. Okay. I have to say this before I read any further. Now, even if some of the things that they are saying here is true, okay, let's play hypothetical. Let's say all the Palestinians in Gaza celebrated this. Let's say Palestinians in the West Bank and whatnot celebrated this too. What happened October the 7th? Even if, let's just say hypothetically they did, okay? Hypothetically, yeah? I'm stressing the word hypothetically. That does not give you the right to kill innocent people. Regardless. Okay? Regardless. Does not give you the right to kill children and innocent people. 41,000 Palestinians have died. Yes, you've killed some Hamas fighters. Yeah, fighters for what's happened October 7th. Yada, yada, yada. But there's lots of innocents there. You've literally destroyed Gaza. What is it? About 90% of the of buildings have been destroyed. About 90%. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I like this. Like, this claim that all Palestinians are guilty of this. No, I just don't accept this. I just don't accept this. You know, Palestinian people within Gaza have been suffered for such a long period. You know, everyone wants a two-state solution. You just won't give it to them. You won't give Palestine you just won't give them what they want. You won't give them what they want. The freedom to be able to choose their own future, to choose their own destiny. You continue to hamstring them. And you want to kick them out of their own lands. And then, because of what happened on October the 7th, which was, by the way, was a terrible and awful attack, because there's no justification from either side you have responsible for this. And then you want to try and then you wonder why some of these people are celebrating what happened on October the 7th, because your nation, Israel, have them locked in a prison where they can't even be recognized as a country to be able to freely do what they want. And you wonder why they celebrated for it. Like, what am I supposed to say to that? Sorry, if my stomach wasn't upset, I'd probably be a lot more angrier, guys, on this. But if all Palestinians back Hamas, whether directly or indirectly, the argument goes is that they are all fair game in this conflict. Oh, what? So what they do in the prisons is justified as well to Palestinians, yeah? It's justified what they do in prisons as well. The thousands of young Palestinian children killed by Israeli bombs are just a regrettable collateral damage of their parents' collective culpability. Well, when research of a recent opinion poll conducted between the 8th and 17th of August by the Arab World for Research and Development, a respective research institute based in Palestine challenges these claims. The poll was based on a phone interview with 538 adult Palestinians across Gaza, representing a cross-section of men and women of all ages and with a range of educational attainment. Whether you consider that over 97% of participants have been displaced during the current conflict, giving them every reason to distrust Israel, the findings are extraordinary. Some 41% of interviewees remain hopeful about their future, despite over 66% believing the war will continue its current intensity for 3 months or more, and 17% believe it will last up to another 6 months. An overwhelming majority, 91%, somewhat or strongly support the Biden administration's ceasefire proposal. This includes majority support, 86% for the release of Israeli hostages and return, and for the release of Palestinian prisoners, and 74% for international management of the Rafah border as part of a ceasefire deal until a permanent arrangement is reached. Israel cannot have full control of all of Palestine's borders. They want full control of everything. That has to stop. They can't have full control. They've got to give up some of that control. You have an animal locked in a cage, right? You lock an animal in a cage. You don't feed it, you don't water it. And then when you put your hand near the cage and the animal scratches you or bites you, and you look at that animal after how dare you hurt me like that? And then you poke and prod the animal and you wonder why the animal's angry at you. And you think that you are, and you think the animal is the guilty one. Think of that analogy. Because that's exactly what many Palestinians feel like. Locked in a cage, against their will, not being able to make choices, not being able to work, not being able to get a proper education, not being able to get healthcare, not being able to get food, not being able to get water, not being able to build a life for themselves, because they have it all taken from them by another nation. They're not even recognised as a country within Gaza. Hope also remains for a longer peace process, with 62% of correspondents backing a two-state solution that is preferred outcome, though this is down from 77% supporting this in a similar poll in May. In second place, 19% favour a one-state solution, up 6% from May. The most intense fighting concern Palestinian views on who they blame for their current predicament, who they would support as their representatives in any future Palestinian-led government in Gaza. While 74% believe Israel is not serious about reaching an agreement, 20% don't think Hamas is serious about a ceasefire deal either. Over half, 53%, believe Hamas is not serious about achieving a national unity government with Fatah, and only 20% or so of correspondents believe that the Palestinian Authority performance thought the war had been satisfactory. Yeah, people within it don't trust Hamas, but at the same time, like, to some of them, it's justifiable what Hamas are doing. What Hamas did on October 7th, it was horrible. But to some of them within Gaza, they see it as justified because of what they have been put through. I'm not saying it is justified, but in their minds, if you try to put yourself in the minds of them, they see it as justifiable. Gaza was a prison. Gaza is a prison. There's no way for them to get out unless they are allowed out by Israel. Most correspondents, 71%, will prefer a Palestinian-led administration to run Gaza after the war. When asked who they would trust most to lead this, only 6% said Hamas, 40% would prefer a Fatah-led government, and 36% back a joint Fatah-Hamas government. See, I've said this before, but I personally think that international body should take control until an elected government can take place. An elected one, an outside body. Like me personally, I would rather have UN peacekeepers run the border between Israel and Gaza, between the whole border between Israel and Gaza and Egypt. I personally have UN peacekeepers control it, because it is destabilized. Like, even if you pull all of Israeli forces out, yeah, the country is destabilized, completely destabilized. So you need to have some kind of authority within there. So that's where I would insert UN peacekeepers. No government affiliates with Palestinians. Like, literally from scratch. The whole thing from scratch. Public support for democratic processes also remain high. God, my stomach is really playing up, sorry. Over 8% of Palestinians would support the holding of a presidential and parliamentary elections after the war. In such elections, 6% said they would vote for Hamas, 47% for Fatah, 17% for none of the above, and 15% would abstain. These results initially seem at odds with surveys done by different Palestinian researchers at earlier stages of the war. Several involving Palestinians in the West Bank as well as Gaza, conducted by well-known pollsters Khalid Shakisky, West Bank-based Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research. I'm not going to have enough time to cover the deep state, unfortunately, guys, Ukraine. These suggested until recently a majority of Palestinians continue to support the Hamas-led October 7th attack and still favour Hamas over Fatah because they view Hamas as being more successful in resisting Israel and garnering international attention for their cause. In an interview with NPR in July, Shusky was at pains to clarify that these surveys did not mean that the majority of Palestinians supported the actual massacres and atrocities that occurred on October the 7th. Yeah, that's a very important point to make. According to him, the problem is that over 90% of Palestinians simply do not believe that Hamas committed such crimes, but they think they are part of an Israeli fabrication. When shown actual video clips of the atrocities, more Palestinians condemn them. Some people made that conspiracy theory, didn't they? Some people did make that conspiracy theory, didn't they? That they thought that Israel fabricated it. That they fabricated the October 7th attack on themselves as an excuse to go into Gaza. Shakiri's most recent poll conducted in early September reflects a further significant drop in support for the October 7th attack, for Hamas for the armed struggles and a rise support for a two-state solution and negotiations with Israel. The most revealing aspect of these polls, however, is a contrast that they provide with Israeli attitudes towards the war, the leader, and their long-term futures. On the Palestinian side, Hamas would seem to be pursuing the war against the wishes of the majority of Palestinians who it claims to represent, despite not having been allowed a free election in Gaza since 2006. And the vast majority of Palestinians would appear to have no say in the conduct of the war. Arguably, they are innocent in a wider outrage being committed in their names and are rather the innocent victims of outrage being committed against them. Yeah, 100% agree with that. If given the chance to vote freely, a growing number of Palestinians emphatically would not want Hamas to continue to represent them. By contrast, Israel's government, the Democratic Party in this conflict, would appear to be pursuing the war in Gaza with the active support of the majority of its civilians. Israelis, by virtue of living in a democratic society, do not have a say in the conduct of the war and appear to be willing to allow it to proceed in their names despite the hardships and suffering this is inflicted on millions of Palestinian civilians. Yeah, guys, try to be civil in your arguments. I know it's a sensitive topic. Try to be civil, guys. Please try to be civil. I know this is I know it's a sensitive topic, guys. I understand the sensitivity around it, but please try to be civil. Israeli support for their leader Benjamin Netanyahu appears to be growing. The longer the war goes on, despite the continuing risk to Israeli hostages, the growing international criticism, and the risk of regional escalation. Are you sure about that? These findings are borne out by successive polls conducted on the Israeli side. For example, the Pew Research Center survey in May found that only 19% of Israel's felt that the army's actions in Gaza had gone too far, with 39% believing it had been about right and 34% it had not gone far enough. 34% say they've not gone far enough. Have they not been? What have they not seen? What's going on? Another opinion poll conducted by well, to be fair, it's probably propaganda what they're getting fed. To be fair, another opinion poll conducted by Lassa Research and Publisher in August in the Israeli newspaper Marvu indicated that despite growing public opposition in Netanyahu's handling the war, he still remained the top choice of Israel to be the country's leader, at 42% versus 40% support for his main rival Benny Gantz, the head of the National Unity Party. The poll also found that Netanyahu's Likud party would come first in parliamentary elections if a vote was held that day, though his broader coalition, including the hard-right parties, would lose support. After suffering a strong dip in support for the first 6 months of the war, Netanyahu and his party now seemingly to be enjoying something of a resurgence, according to analysis by the Israeli newspaper. This is largely due to Israelis rallying around the leader again in response to the threat of a wider regional war joining Lebanon and Iran. In addition, while a majority of Palestinians still hold out for a two-state solution, a bit less than before the war, the growing majority of Israelis reject this. They can't have the land. They can't take the whole of Gaza. The world will not allow it. The world must not allow them to take Gaza and kick its people out. They can't allow it. They must not. According to a Pew Research poll, Centre poll conducted in early April, only 26% of Israelis now believe a way can be found for Israel and an independent Palestinian state to coexist peacefully. That's terrible. However, there are clear positions within Israel's society and Israelis who identify themselves as being on the political left. And Arab Israelis being far more critical of Netanyahu and more open to a ceasefire than religiously observed Jews and Israelis who identify on the political right. It's easy to say that, of course, Palestinians in Gaza are more likely to favour peace than Israelis, given that we are facing utter devastation, while Israel is by far the stronger party, benefiting from the continuous support from the West. However, these different polls also suggest that it may be misplaced to keep holding Hamas and the Palestinian primary to blame for the continuation of the war, as the US and other Western governments have tended to do, at least in public. Hamas are undeniably guilty of starting the war, of exaggerating the suffering of Palestinian civilians and by hiding among them, and in keeping the innocent Israelis as hostages. But support for Hamas and the armed struggling is failing. The longer the war goes on, giving them every incentive to seek resolution. The current approach does not enjoy the backing of the people. By contrast, Netanyahu and his coalition appeared to be the party the most to gain by letting this war continue, even escalating it, since it seems to be having the effect of rallying the Israeli public behind them and diminishing Israeli support of a two-state solution, something which Netanyahu has long opposed. Most Israelis did not choose this war, but they are allowing it to continue. Tensions in the region are even more on the knife edge following the pager walkie-talkie attacks in Hezbollah operations earlier this week, and presume the work of Israeli intelligence. If they wish to avoid a full-on regional war, perhaps it's time for the US and many other Western administrations to finally acknowledge what they have long chosen to gloss over, that most Palestinians did not choose this war and they are bearing the harshest consequences. And that is the Israeli government, which is actively choosing to prolong the conflict and risk its escalation, while the active support for many Israelis. This was a piece by Alexander Hall from Byline Times. The link is in the description, you guys. I wanted to cover Ukraine, but given the time, I won't be able to, unfortunately. I will say these are interesting polling numbers. So they're, according to their conduct, the conducts that they are getting there. Sorry, my stomach is really playing up, guys. I apologise. I don't know what's happening with my stomach. It's really playing up. I'm really sorry, guys. I'm trying to convey my thoughts while also getting in pain at the moment at the same time. I'm sorry. These polls are I would say these polls and numbers are very interesting, but I've always said about polls and whatnot to always take them with a pinch of salt, and obviously it doesn't represent all people, but it represents some people who have reported in them. But it does. I do find them fascinating, nonetheless, to say the least, of what some people within Gaza are saying, what some people in Israel are saying about this, as well. It is, I would say, interesting thoughts, to say the least. I am very surprised that more people are rallying behind Netanyahu. I am surprised by that, because this conflict and the conflict that's brewing between them and Lebanon is not good for Israel's economy. Overall, it's not good for their economy. It's not good for that. From what I keep hearing time and time again, is that Israel's economy is suffering as a result of this conflict in Gaza, and as a result of what's happening, and obviously now what could potentially be a full-blown war with Lebanon. That will obviously add more to it. I mean, obviously, I think, from understandably so, especially if I can understand if there are obviously the Israeli people who live there in the north, and obviously they can't live in those regions because of missile attacks and whatnot coming from Lebanon into those territories. I can understand that point. But yeah, it's different. All right, let me have a quick look what's going on in the chat, because chat seems to be a little bit... There seems to be a bit more heat in the chat than need be on this. So what is this? What you guys are saying? When Russia made it clear its only reason isn't invading Poland is that that is a NATO country, things have changed. The ducks are hungry, but the cats are preventing humanitarian aid getting through, says Stig McMorran. It is to me that streaming both that the fisheries have a problem, but we Finns were famously neutral until we got propagandized. Now is the most staunch Russian phobes, said Chris Fisher to Jaldi and Verti. Finland has universal military service. Of course, we serve in the military. Yes, yeah, it's mandatory for you guys in Finland, obviously, because if Russia was ever Russia was to ever declare war on you guys. Because you have quite a border with because of the vast border you guys have with them. Okay, so it's about So when I was in the army, in 1989, we already had the NATO. We didn't join because of not disturbing the Russia. Then Putin attacked the Vertigo. Yes, so it's because of what happened in Ukraine, isn't it? It's what prompted Finland to join. It's what I believe anyway. But no, it's fine as long as you guys are trying. I understand. Like I just it's interesting. Trying to understand. I have no problem with discussions. Obviously, just trying not to go too far. I appreciate. It's all good, Jody. Yeah, just Chris Fisher. I don't want an argument. Just making points to see them interested in hearing others' views when you find the truth. Yeah, yeah. It's just trying to fight. Yeah, that's. I think that's a fair way of putting it, guys. As much as I want to keep going, and we're about 8 minutes away from Max going live on his live stream, and my stomach will not shut up, and will not go away. Unfortunately, I don't have a funny video for you, another funny video, guys, so I do apologise for that, but I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's come along. Thank you, One Angry Pagan, for the 2 super chats today. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Alistair Keir, for the 20 gifted memberships. That's extremely kind of you. Thank you to everyone who has commented tonight here on the live chat. Let me some feedback down in the comments below what you guys thought of some of the things that we covered today. And yeah, I will actually keep this going. I think I'll keep this going on Friday evenings at 7 p.m. I need to rotate because I'm not really covered. I haven't covered Ukraine. I need to do something on Ukraine. So I might even do a video, maybe a premiere video or something at some point, because I haven't been covering enough of it. I've just done short videos, but not really enough analysis on it. But we'll see anyway, guys. But yeah, thanks for coming along, and I'll see you guys in Max's live stream in just a bit. But obviously I'll try and get Regan's news route out for you guys tomorrow as well. So I'll be lurking in the chat on there as well. Youngif, I have seen your comment on the Twitch chat. I appreciate. Thank you for popping on the Twitch chat. I really appreciate it. It's hard to keep Younger in power, even for China. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I don't get much conversation on Twitch chat, but I do appreciate you popping in there. Very appreciated. And Hate Cloudy9 as well. Thanks for popping in there as well, guys. But yes, I will be back on. For those who want to know when I'm live streaming again, I'll be back on Monday evening at 8 p.m. with Snowflake Viewpoint, both here on YouTube and on Twitch.tv, guys. But before I go, I just want to have one final thing for you guys. If you haven't already, please hit the like button or the follow button on Twitch. Be greatly appreciated. Share them across social media so others are notified of this live stream. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing on YouTube, because it really does help support the channel. And if you guys want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for just 99p, or you can join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So I want to say once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.